Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Today's a great day to build Black wealth. It's Lisa C. And I'm back with another episode of Money Moves. What's your next? With navigating our next move at the forefront of many people's minds in the Black community, this series will help you identify new opportunities, resources, and the professionals that can help you bounce back or spring forward and gain some momentum to build Black wealth. It's time for us to go forward to better. This interview series is sponsored by a new movement called Black People Forward, whose mission is to improve outcomes in the Black community and help Black people gain some momentum forward in the areas of health and wealth. Today, my guest is Christopher Letsinger. He is the CEO of CLConsultingGrp. Chris's area of expertise is helping set up Black business owners to do business with the government and consult them through the process. Chris is a retired captain from the Army, and after retirement, he opened a government contracting consulting firm in the civilian sector, where he teaches small businesses how to do business with the government. Chris has a wealth of talents. He has become one of 10 Black jewelers in the U.S. If you want to learn how to get structured and learn how to become fundable, today's show is for you. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you, Miss Lisa. Thank you. And welcome to all your viewers. And we are so proud to be on this platform and so proud to be sitting here talking to you.
Absolutely. So I like to start with something compelling. And you made a statement. You said the government does not own anything. It procures everything. And that any industry can get into the government sector to create a totally new customer base, to expand portfolios, and to build business revenue. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. And that's a shocking statement because you have to all take it in and realize that anything that the government does, they don't pay for. This is what we always say, your tax dollars. That's the key right there. Where does your tax dollars go to? That is what the government does. And by law, they don't own anything because we are taxpayers. Our laws govern them on how to spend money. Here's the flip side. They have to spend the money. You can't have taxation without spending. And that's the key that I try to bring to small entrepreneurs and understand what they're getting into.
So let's break that down in Black talk, if you will. They don't own anything. They have to spend it. Make it plain.
They have to spend it. And okay, I'll make it even better than that. They have to spend it by normally October 31st of every year. And we're talking a large sum of money. I can't get exact because every year it changes. Like recently, the President of the United States just signed a $1 trillion bill. I'll say that one more time for your listeners. $1 trillion spending on infrastructure. When we say infrastructure is roads, buildings, services, goods, everything that they need to operate. That is where the small businesses need to get aware of and thinking, just because it's $1 trillion, I'm not saying that the government is going to give you, that one solo entrepreneur, $1 trillion. But guess what? You can get a piece of that pie very easily. And that's where I demystify all the rhetoric and all of the big words that we like to use in government. I just basically break it down to say, hey, you can have a piece of this pie if you follow this model.
And we'll talk about it deeper later, but what kinds of businesses could potentially take advantage of that $1 trillion? Give me some sectors.
Actually, the construction sector, services sector, support sector, nurses, and I'll be real abstract. Barbers, let me think of other things, mechanics, fish stores, or any product or good that a legal business has, they can sell those products to the government. Because, like I said, and I'll keep repeating it, the government does not own anything, it procures. The word procurement means to acquire services from legalized businesses to support the government's functioning. From pens, the old attitude about pens and paper. Guess what? They don't own it, they buy it. office furniture, they buy it. The buildings that they're in, and that is like a phase 2, they lease those buildings. That is on a real estate side, because I'm even talking to real estate agents that like, I didn't know that. Well, I'm educating you now. Everything that they sit on, they have to buy or lease. Mostly in a real estate, they lease. But it's an opportunity. You have to have a real estate agent or a broker or something to have those transactions, because the government doesn't own it.
Wow. And you even mentioned speakers.
Absolutely. Speaking engagements. And I'll try to be quick because we can do this all day. It's a big thing. When I was active duty as a contracting officer, we used to celebrate Women's Day, Women's Month. We would go out and get business women or somebody inspiring, whether it was a pastor or anybody in the community, leaders, to come in and speak. Guess what? The government is allowed. Now, we're not going to pay you like $100,000. That's not what we're going to do. But to do that, we would pay them a small stipend. But guess what they just did? They just did business with the government. So therefore, if they would get into the government sector and say, hey, I want another opportunity, what have you done before for the government, which we call past performance? They have it. And people don't realize that. There's smaller things on a schedule that the government buys. People don't realize that the government has a credit card program. And this is the one that I love to push to small businesses. If you're a small business and you need quick funds to come in and you do everything you got to do, and we get a hold of that, anything under a threshold of $25,000, I can swipe that credit card. Those are instant revenues into your company.
Okay, let's slow that back.
Yes.
So you can swipe the credit card to hire a small business to do what?
Absolutely. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a client now that works in the wedding industry. She does formal events, linens for tables, perfect example. Linens for tables. She supplied these for colleges, certain police departments, stuff like that. That is what we call a small threshold. So if it's $1,500, and stay with my point, if it's $1,500, they swipe the credit card. We all know with the credit card, that is instant payment. Now, here's the key that I get the aha moment. What if I did that every day? What if I did that 3 or 4 times a month? For the small business who has, if that doesn't do anything but pay the rent or pay the light bill, pay the electric bill, it's not coming out of your pocket. And imagine if you can do that 365 days a year, because legally they can under a certain threshold.
But are you saying that the government would have need for the linens and therefore you would hire the linen company?
Yes, ma'am, because it goes back to my original statement. The government doesn't own anything. It procures everything. So the linens, that they don't own those. They bring in somebody to provide that service, and then they go away. And we pay.
Okay. This is good. We're going to dig. We're digging deeper here. So if you have a $25,000 a month threshold for the month of August, what types of services or products do you buy on a regular basis that you could potentially purchase from a small business?
Okay, so let's go with the simple ones, because like I said, I try to break it down. Let's go with the simplest one that everybody ignores: cleaning. Okay, remember, we don't own anything. To cleaning of bathrooms, cleaning of supplies. I can only do it I'm going to do it from the military standpoint of view, because that was my main sector. Soldiers who have to train, they have to take showers, they need cleaning supplies in the barracks. We don't supply that. We buy it and supply it. So small vendors, because they're under a certain threshold, and I'm saying that on purpose because we think big business. So I can buy $25,000 worth of Clorox. I can buy $25,000 worth of cleaning. And I use that number, and it fluctuates. So anyone out there listening, your listeners, I'm using a small number on purpose. So this is not law, but you need to equate to what I'm saying. But imagine if I did that. Look at a base. Here's another good example. Look at a base. There's hundreds of buildings on bases. There's units on bases. Every unit needs cleaning supplies. So guess what? Every different, we call it billet, every different office has a cleaning budget, whether it's $1,000, $2,000. But if you look at a base and there's 5,000, 10,000 troops on a base at a time, all of those soldiers need cleaning products. And that's the basis of it. So if you take that and you multiply it, if I was to do business on one base with three offices, and say my overhead was low, just basic cleaning products, and he swiped it $5,000 every day, and my wholesale prices would net me Let's go simple, $1,500 a day. $1,500 will cover your lights. $1,500 will cover your rent in a business. And I'm doing simple math because imagine now, you can't imagine how, guess what if it increased? Guess what if you went from 15 to 3,000, 3,000 to 6,000 based on the offices that you go to and you solicit. Here's the key though. And I know you're going to ask a question. Here's the key though. You have to perform the job. If I buy it from you, once you deliver it, you're good. Once you do that service, you are good.
Thank you for saying that, because my next question was going to be, those examples you gave were products, yes. Even though you see it as a service. What types of service businesses could you potentially spend your $25,000 budget with?
Okay, I'll give you another. I'm trying to keep it simple and for the listeners to say, wow, cutting grass. We don't own anything. We have to do maintenance. We hire or contract out landscapers. If we need trees, we go to nurseries. Those are the type things, those are products and services, other products. I'm so used to having products and services tied into the same thing. But supplies, let me put it like that. Supplies, notebooks, electronics, those are products, computers, products, anything that you use. Go ahead.
In the Black community, there is a large percentage of business owners that are hairdressers, barbers. They own clothing lines. And mind you, we do a whole bunch more than that. But right, coaches, authors, speakers, yes. Consultants. I'm speaking small business, probably under 5 employees. How do you hire someone like that? Or do they not fit?
No, they fit. They fit. Matter of fact, that is the regulations that says okay, I got to get fancy.
Okay.
What they call the simplified acquisition process. Any service, product, or service or product under $250,000 falls in this. That falls to most of our small businesses. And I say, I've been doing this for a long time, so I try not to get too wordy or fancy with terms that the small business can't understand. You made an example or a reference to a barber. I like to use out of the box. If you go on any military base, which is a government entity, they have barbers. We get our hair cut by barbers. Guess what? They need supplies. They need clippers. They need cleaning products. And these are the things that for the small businesses, beauty supplies. Every base has a grocery store or what we call a PX, or let's call it a Macy's. I don't know if that's a good thing, but it's a department store on every base. Those are regular goods that you get outside of the base. We have to buy those products from suppliers. So as a small business, it doesn't matter what you do. Products, services, anything, advertising. Let's get into it. Hair. Women love their hair. We have over 200,000 women in the military or in a government entity. They buy hair products also. So any product that you have, I guarantee you, working with my company, I can link you to the government to at least open your eyes to providing them services or products.
So in the example of the barber himself would not come on the base and cut hair, but they might buy the products from him?
Okay, I'm glad you said it like that. And the answer is no. If the barber is a legal entity, i.e. an LLC or S Corp or however he is, he can do a contract to even provide those services and be hired by the government, because a barber has a license too. Barber is a skilled craft too. So you can take him, his products and his customers and take them to the government. And there is a way to do it. And people don't know that. And people don't because they look at big business and they say, okay, well, we're thinking all these $1 million contracts. And me, myself, and I tell people this, I'm not worried about the big business because the government never closes. And I'll use this key and I'll let you chime in on it. During this whole traumatic pandemic, what I'd say to people, what is the one entity that did not close? Mm-hmm. And that was the government.
That's right.
Absolutely. So if you have a legal business that is legal, like you said, fundable, and when I say legal, you don't have to, and I want to say this very correctly for your listeners, we all start off somewhere. We're not going to go from $0 to $1 million. We understand how small business struggle. But what I saw was there was a need for education on how do I get more business legally into my business. And this is one of the avenues. And I say avenues because I really want to circle back around. That's another entity. But one of the avenues is B to G model. And this is the one that will get you funds. And I say that on this prefaces. A 30-day cycle, we look at our calendar. We normally pay on a 30-day cycle. So if you come and you do the job on the 1st, complete it, and I'm keeping numbers simple. By the next month on the 1st, you should get a payment. And everybody says, oh, the government is late and everything. I even deal with that. There are definitely ways to deal with it. But here's the point, and I'll keep bringing that home. We're looking at people to pay us, and we're wondering how we're going to get these funds when this is an avenue that will pay. And on a larger scale, on a larger contract, and I know we're going with small businesses, but there's even a process in there. If you get to a certain point and the government is late, by law, we have to pay interest. So you cannot lose. And that is the thing. And the thing I want my listeners to learn is, or your listeners rather, is open up your mind to new things in the Black community that will help you, not only in business, but like I said, in wellness. If your business is moving along, your spirit is doing well. Your whole being is doing well because now you're able to grow. So it's not only business, but it's spiritual. And one of my mentors taught us that, and I had to realize it. Business is spiritual. If you're not having a good day and your business is not having a good day, nobody's having a good day. It connects spiritually.
This is great. So you're an expert in doing business with the government. How do you help businesses work with the government?
Basically, I'm the one that's going to sit down with you and do the hard work with you. There are certain terms and fancy things that they need, and I don't want to get into that because it clouds the judgment. I work with you to get properly registered and let you understand how to go about it, where, first of all, there's zero cost, zero, to get registered and properly in place with the government. Most advertisement, these big businesses will charge you anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So I know some of the listeners may say, that don't make no sense. If they're doing it, why can't you do it? Once again, in our community, we perish for lack of knowledge. That knowledge is free. And I'm going to give that out because once you get educated, then guess what? We as a collaborative can work together. It does me no good to charge you something when you don't have revenues coming in. And that's what scares us in the community. I can't use them because they're already expensive. By law, this information to get you from point A to point B is free for everyone out there listening that has a legit business. And we'll talk about that later in the interview.
Actually, that was our next step. So you talked about the 3 S's that are necessary to succeed in business.
Yes.
What are those 3?
I said it's sustainability.
Systems. That's okay. And structure.
Structure. I have it all going through my head. Right. So structure. We'll go there. Structure. The United States government does not recognize sole proprietorship. It does not do that. You have to be a legal entity. And that is the key. In a legal entity, it doesn't cost you that much, but in every state is different, but it's still worth it. I don't even think it's a lot in the state of Virginia, but you have to be a legal structure or they won't recognize you. Okay? So that's structure. In systems, I think it was the other one was systems, correct? In systems, for your listeners, here's a side note. We don't focus now on, with everything that's happening, small businesses have to shift from focusing on customers. We look at customers as physical bodies. We can't do that anymore in this environment, and we don't have to get it. Everybody knows what's going on. The world has stopped because of this situation. That's all I'm going to say. But customers are no longer. Systems are what pay. And when I say systems, government systems, distribution, products, big business has not stopped. As a small Black entrepreneur, we don't understand those systems. And that's what I mean by systems. And the last S was
sustainability.
Sustainability. We don't understand how to be fundable and sustainable. You can't go to a bank and borrow $1,000 if you don't have $10 in the bank. We have to figure out a way to be sustainable. When you get those 3 things, even with $0 in the bank, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm a product of that. We started off just like every other small entrepreneur, but we got those things in place. And as the money came in, which is another segment, how to take your money and leverage it properly. The problem in the Black entrepreneur society and education is they don't really understand. Every dollar we get in, we chew up and we spit out. And you really cannot do that. But with a proper model that I teach and exposure on your show, they can do that where they'll have funds coming in. We can properly show that they're structured, they're sustainable because they have a avenue of revenue, which is the greatest one, the government. You can walk into any bank, take that contract and say, look, I'm a small business, but will you help me? They look at that contract and say, okay, these are going to be your revenues based on how much it is. We might be able to help you, but it's a better start than, hey, I'm a small business. I have no business, but I want a loan. What do you do?
That was very valuable, what you just shared. Absolutely. Because saying that I have some customers or I have some customers soon, but when you have a government contract, they can project out what those revenues will be.
Yes, ma'am. And you hit it on projections because the average, and I say average, the average contract for a government for the government is a 5-year contract. And I'll say this to your audience, you have what they call a base plus 4. So that's 5. I'm not saying they're going to give you a 5-year contract, but that's the way it's set up. Even if you got a 1-year contract, you still have revenues. You still have a ability to be sustainable. Somebody's going to talk to you. And anything up above is great. It's great.
So working with the government is pandemic proofing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I tell them, and now I'll stick on it. Before, we don't like to, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we don't like to brag because we think people are going to look at us a different way. What I realized through this whole journey is I'm going to brag. You know why? Because people need to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I tell everybody with me and my wife, when the pandemic hit, we also was affected, but we had to shift. We don't even deal with customers now. We don't even worry about customers. We deal with systems. The systems bring the customers. Whereas before we were looking for bodies, now we don't look for bodies. The systems come to us and we work through the systems.
I love it. I love it. So while we just finished up with the 3 S's, systems, sustainability, and structure, let's talk about the 3 H's, hook up, hobby, and hustle.
I love this. I love this because my mentor who brought me into, and shout out to Dr. Watson, I have to give a shout out, of Black Mastermind Institute, told us most entrepreneurs do 3 things. A hookup, which is somebody getting you into something and you just running and making money, which is not a business. A hobby, which is something that just doesn't produce any funds, but it produces satisfaction. Or a hustle. And hookup, hobby, or hustle. Mine was, I would say, a hustle, because what I was doing was when I was in the military, which is not illegal, I was opening and closing businesses. I was making a little bit of money. So that was just a hustle. It doesn't sustain you to the point where you could go, and this was the aha moment. Even though you have that, you can't go to a bank and get more money, which brings us to, and we'll do that later on in the show, OPM, other people's money. But that's later on.
All right. Okay. Let's see. We talked about recession proofing.
Yes.
By doing business with the government. Let's shift a second and talk about you.
Yes.
So you dropped out of high school, went back, fast-tracked, and graduated on time with your classmates.
Yes, ma'am.
Then you enlisted in the United States Army, served as an officer, and retired after 25 years as a commissioned officer in the grade of captain.
Yes, ma'am.
And you also received your BS in business management, and you also attended the U.S. Army Logistics College. You went from dropping out of high school to really strengthening your knowledge in your mind. Let's talk right now about why you're helping businesses work with the government at this point in your career.
Absolutely. The one thing that I want your listeners to know is somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. When we can get to a point where that one person touches us and sees something in us, then we can skyrocket. Going back to dropping out of high school, like any other child, I was 16, I was young, I was running the street, I was from New York. So, you know what New Yorkers are, we love the street.
Yes.
But the streets didn't pay, the streets didn't protect, they didn't do anything. And at the end of the day, I was alone. I had, and I'll say this, I had a drug dealer friend who protected me and told me, this is not you. What are you doing? These streets are not for you. Go back to school and do what you're supposed to do. Then when I got back to the high school, there was 3 of us that had dropped out. And I love telling this story. 3 of us that had dropped out. So we couldn't get back into the high school until our parents brought us back. So long story short, the three of us are sitting there with my mother, the child's parents, and the three of us. And the principal said to us, I'm not here to sugarcoat, but I'm just telling you from looking at this, I guarantee you only one of you will graduate in front of our parents. And that moment shook me. And I was like, oh my God. But I could see the wheels turning where people were pushing me. So I did what I had to do. I didn't party. I went home, I did my homework, and I got back at it. Here was the other key. When that happens in New York, they don't release your grades to you. So I took all my tests, everything not knowing. So at the end of the year before graduation, they brought all the parents back in. And the principal said, I'm sorry to tell you, but my prediction was correct. Only one of you will be graduating. Chris, congratulations.
Wow.
And shock and awe and look on those parents' faces, I'll never forget. But for me, at that moment, it instilled something in me. So then after that, I went home and I said, Dad, I want to go to college. I want to get myself together. I'm the baby of 8. My father said, son, I love you, but I ain't got no money for college. So whatever you're going to do is fine with me. So I said, you know what? I had previous family in the military. I'm going to go to the military. I say that because getting into the military, it happened again. People in my sphere of influence said, you have potential. You just have to believe in yourself. Now, I was what they call a late bloomer. I did not turn into a commissioned officer until I had 15 years of enlisted service in the military. I was one of the oldest gentlemen in my class to graduate.
Wow.
So it's just the fact of once, even, and this goes back to your listeners, as an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter age. It doesn't matter when you start. You have to have that passion to know that this is what God put in you, and you have to be willing to accept somebody putting something into you. So as I got my success, that was my gift from God. I did it for you. You need to tell other people. Somebody saw something in you. Now you deposit it in other people. And that's what I've been doing.
Love it. Love the story. So when we were speaking prior to the interview, you said to lose is actually to win. What does that mean?
I love that.
With the government.
There you go. Everybody says that because I love using things that catch people off guard. Here's the key. And everybody says that it's so hard to do business with the government. I can't win a contract. I can't do this. Nobody ever told you that. When you lose a contract or a bid, by law, the contract officer, i.e. used to be me, has to tell you why you lost that. There's your win. Because now if they're good, now this is okay, this is all flakes and puffy and everything. Because you can get a bad one just as well as you get a good one. But the majority of people in contracting want to see you succeed because it's more work for us if you lose, if you can't perform in any manner. Mm-hmm. So I said that, I coined that phrase because I'm teaching people now to get in there, bid, and don't worry about winning. Take the keys. If you lose, we can come back to the table and develop you a plan to go back. Just like I said out of high school, I had to go back. A lot of times we don't go get that first house. We don't go get that car that we want. You got to go back.
Yes.
And that's the win. In order to win, you must lose. And it's a great concept because then I never knew that. Yes. And the bylaw, I force them. I teach them to believe in yourself and say, hey, I made this mistake or you didn't select me for this reason. What can I do to be better? And they'll tell you.
Yes, that's great. So what do Black business owners believe about their business having the ability to do business with the government that is not necessarily true? So what are the myths? What do they believe that's not necessarily true?
The myths are, one, that we're just small. We have no power. We have to struggle. Mm-hmm. That's a myth. Mm-hmm. Because you're not, even though you're small, you're not educated. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. We have to get educated about what is it really to be a small Black business. And go ahead.
But with regard to getting hired or getting a contract with the government, what do we believe? That maybe we are too small?
Right. That maybe we are too small and we don't know if we can perform those contracts. We look for the bigger picture before we even see the small picture because nobody presents the small picture to you. I gave you the example of supplies. Mm-hmm. One transaction gives you past performance. One transaction is all it takes to say, hey, I've done business with the government. And I think that's one of your questions later. I'll give you the story of a gentleman that I just helped to get his foot in the door through one small transaction.
No.
And that's the thing that we don't think we can compete with the big boys. It has nothing to do with the big boys. It has to do with structuring your business, understanding what business is, and putting all the pieces together and then going for it. That's all it is.
That you made that really simple.
Yes.
So can you share an experience you had that affected you financially and you had to figure out what your next money move was? How did you bounce back from that?
Okay, this is a great story. The first business that I started with my wife was a mobile boutique. We actually took a 40-foot RV and we gutted it and made it into a showroom. I had the choice at that point because we wanted to do something different. And anybody knows that once you alter a vehicle or anything and you still have a loan on it, it devalues the vehicle. We can never go back. But here was the aha moment in it. We didn't just do that because it was a big idea. I didn't agree to do it in the first place. But I challenged her because at that time when we started the business, we didn't have a distributor. We didn't have accounts. We didn't have anybody that knew who we were. And I told her, I'm not doing this unless you find an account, you find a distributor, and we provide accounts. Less than a month later, she did it. She put together a deal with the largest distributor in the United States. Pitched the idea over the phone. We met with him, and I kid you not, and I still joke about this to this day because I literally sat there saying to myself, please don't let this woman break down crying when he says no. And the man, she did her presentation. He bought us lunch. At the end of the lunch date, he reached in his briefcase and said, congratulations. I've never seen this. We need this in this marketplace. Here's your first contract, major distribution deal. I was done.
Wow.
So you have to, my point is sometimes you have to take risk. You have to take risk and be willing to go there. After that, I was all in.
That's amazing. So what are 3 reasons why learning about doing business with the government makes sense and is a strategy for Black business owners to consider?
Okay, here's the 3 reasons. 1, there's a model that has those 3 reasons in it. The ultimate guide to business is 3 areas: business to customer, which we still have, business to business, and then business to government. If you look at any big corporation, they incorporate those. Those are the 3 reasons why you need to do it. Here's a unique thing. I call it the complete circle. But the complete circle moves sometimes in big business because it's doing it now. We're not, as small businesses, we are not surviving off of business to customer. Everybody's affected. Mm-hmm. But when you see businesses that haven't closed, i.e., and I have to use us as an example because we shifted. You shift into your other 2 models. It's a circle because that circle never stops. When one is down, the other 2 is up. Now, I advocate for the government because the government never shuts down. It has never shut down. I just mentioned previously $1 trillion in infrastructure. During COVID, we spent all this money with vaccinations. Those vaccinations aren't provided by the government. They mandated and have to have services. We know Pfizer and those other 3 big players were the ones that administered it. But guess what? The needles that they need, the vials that they need, there's certain supplies under them that small businesses supply. People don't realize that. So I say that to say that is what the small Black entrepreneurs need to understand. Build your solid circle, B2B, B2C, and B2G, and you won't go out of business because you'll be able to flex between the 3.
Excellent. Wow. You mentioned OPM.
Yes. So with that, the OPM is, like I said, the big people in industry, your big corporations. If you look at a perfect example, Walmart uses the OPM model, other people's money. The way they make money is off of other businesses and other people providing service and goods. And all they do is house it, distribute the whole 9. Big corporations use other investors, different things like that. We have to learn that model. If you look at it, and I want to say this because I look at it like that, for me, being in the government, I'm using OPM. I'm using your tax dollars to fund my business, other people's money. It's not only my tax dollars, it's your tax dollars, Ms. Lisa. It's my wife's tax dollars. It's everybody's tax dollars, OPM. Then you have to go into the banks, which is another segment on your show.
And maybe we'll do that.
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you share that successful outcome where you help someone do business with the government?
Yes, ma'am. So what I do is I just basically come in and make sure they have that. Make sure they're legally structured. That's the first start. Don't do the hookup, hobby, or hustle. Let's get structured. Let's make you a legal entity, LLC, S Corp, whatever it is, just something that the government recognizes it. And then I come in and I just basically help them with all of their structure, make sure they have everything in place. And then we come up with a strategy for you to go after something, because then we have to identify what goods or services or products that you have that I can help you market to the government. I'll give you a great example. And this is a plug for myself. One of 10 Black-owned jewelers. I didn't realize that even the government buys jewelry. So my aha moment was, same thing. I was blessed to get my license and do all that. And then it dawned on me one day, every base has what they call a PX. It's a mall you shop at. And I was like, they got watches, they got jewelry. So with my background, I found the local buyer through the channels. And her budget, and I'll say it was her, because I was like, okay, I want to sit down with you, do this. She said, no, it doesn't work like that. She said, you should know it doesn't work like that. And I said, well, can you at least tell me your budget? She said, sure, $10 million on diamonds.
Wow.
$10 million. So here's the aha moment. I'm not looking at the $10 million, but once again, what if I got $5,000 here, $10,000 here? Would that not sustain my business? So it doesn't matter what you do. We can connect you into a space that will support your business. We just have to be educated on it.
Wow. And so who did you help and get a government contract?
Oh, okay. So that's my love, my great story. I was blessed to have a contract with NATO, North American Treaty Organization. So here's a story which I love. So we were sitting in a meeting and they needed some fiber cable ran for a new project that they were doing. Well, everybody was going around the room. Everybody's busy constantly. Just this whole conversation about we couldn't get this guy. We couldn't get that one. About 15 or 20 minutes into it, I said, can I say something? And the head of the director said, sure, Chris, what do you have? I said, have y'all ever thought about a small business? I said, is the project that big? And everybody paused. And they were like, no. I said, why don't you just, is it, I didn't know what the project was. I said, if it's a small enough project, why not try to get a small business in? Because they're probably not busy as the big guys. Chris, you handle it. They did just like that. Okay, make it happen. So went off my head. Okay, I knew a small business that was in that space. And I called them up and I said, hey, I've got an opportunity for you, but you got to let me know if you can pull this off. And we talked about the project. And he said, Chris, I can do that if you can get me in the door. And I told him, if you get in the door, don't mess this up. Come to find out, the project was right up his alley. He got in there, he did the job, got the reviews, he did everything. He just did business with the government. So now the success story is we're going to collaborate together and he's going to go to other projects, because the first thing the government does is ask you, have you ever done business with the government? And his is yes.
Great story. That's excellent. That's excellent. Do you have any recommendations to have someone better their financial position? Any free resources, an app, and anything that you can share?
That to be honest, I can't. I would say, and this is going to be old school, the only thing we did, and I have to say it, we just sacrificed. To better your finances, you got to give up something to get something. If you want to be in business, you got to personally step back. I was blessed to have a retirement, but we didn't start off with that big, huge house, or we didn't start off with buying big cars at the time. And that's the honest way. I guess I'm bones of it. Sacrifice what you got to do. Get all the stuff free first. That would be the nugget. Everything free, take advantage of it. The SBA site, that goes back into your question. If you go to SBA.gov, all your listeners should do that. SBA.gov, there is a tab that says government contracting. That's why I said the information I'm giving you is out there. So that's the first thing I would say. Get everything free in business that you can. Now the LLC and the rest of it, you got to pay for any state. Right. But you're talking a meal to register. Right. Okay, so do that. But go get the education. Listen to your show. Those are things that they need to do. Educate yourself before you step out.
That's great. That's a great share. Mm-hmm. So in closing, if you were speaking to one Black entrepreneur about the importance of working with the government and creating an income that's not attached to customers and the benefit of that, what would you say to them in closing?
In closing, I would say, look at the bigger picture. If you want your future to be bright, build that model. The government, like I said, the government is still here. The government pays. You just need to learn how. You have to have that vision. Connect with you to connect with me and learn something that doesn't cost you anything. We are too busy holding on to information. Open up your mind, body, and spirit to learn something and grow your business.
Wonderful. How can people find out more about you, Chris?
I tell them I teach on they need to go to the Black Mastermind group and look for me there. I tell people the reason why is because we teach basic business first. A lot of times people will get on the bandwagon of saying, I got to get in touch with them and do that. Guess what? I had the choice of getting big and forgetting where I come from. I will not do that. I can't help you until you help yourself. Or they can get in touch with me through you.
Love it. That's right.
We are connected now. But I do that on purpose, Ms. Lisa, because we have to do what we're supposed to do first. You didn't come to me or find me because I was just this important person. God put us together for a reason.
That's right.
And God will lead the people in the right direction. They have to be set up first. I cannot help them if they do it. I don't need to do a website or anything like that. If they want to do this and they want to be blessed by listening to your show and subscribing, they can get to me through you.
Collaboration is key.
Yes, ma'am. And this is the year of collaboration.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.